there, welcome back. So have you ever heard of compassion fatigue? It's also known as secondary traumatic stress disorder, or STS, but it's a condition that's characterized by a gradual lessening of compassion over time. It's really common among people who work directly with trauma victims, such as healthcare professionals or law enforcement. Even teachers can experience compassion fatigue. Symptoms often include hopelessness or a decrease in feelings of pleasure, stress, anxiety, even sleeplessness and nightmares. Recently, compassion fatigue has gained attention, and some sociologists maintain that it is on the rise this year due to the saturation of negativity in current events.
People across the country are afraid, terrified, running scared, afraid of the future, petrified, fearful, afraid, scared, freaked out, scared, silly, frightened. A frightening reality out there of the socialist, racist, toxic.
Let's face it, the current definition of breaking news means the latest bad thing they have to show us. And when the novelty of that story kind of wears off, they just have to find another one that's equally as troublesome or increase the emotionality of the coverage. This cartoon by David Cypress pretty much nails my thoughts on it some days. Can you relate? We can blame some of this on the media, but there is neuroscience behind it, namely a cognitive bias that affects us all. Negativity bias refers to the idea that negative thoughts, emotions, or social interactions have a greater impact on us than do neutral or positive ones. The negativity bias has been explored in a variety of cognitive functions, such as attention, learning, memory, and even decision-making. For example, studies show that when we're presented with a decision in which we can either gain something or lose something, our natural tendency is to focus on the loss rather than the gain. But there's good news. Recent studies have shown that the brain can actually overcome the negativity bias, and it has everything to do with neuroplasticity. Specifically, it's called experience-dependent plasticity. See, all mental activity, our sights, our sounds, our thoughts, our feelings, those conscious and unconscious processes that are happening in our brains right now, they're all based on underlying neural activity. But brain imaging technology shows us that intense, prolonged, or repeated mental and neural activity will actually alter the structure of the brain. In other words, neurons that fire together, wire together, and mental states over time become neural traits. One famous study used brain imaging technology to study the brains of London cab drivers. And if you've ever been to London, you know that the streets and the building numbers make absolutely no sense. They just don't follow a logical grid pattern. And black cab drivers have to memorize the city's layout by driving it and paying attention to landmarks and buildings. Scientists discovered that the connections in their visual spatial cortex were thicker and larger because they used that part of their brain day in and day out. Other studies have examined the brains of people who practice mindfulness, and they found that their brains are thicker and stronger in 3 key regions. The prefrontal areas behind the forehead that control concentration and focus, the insula, the region responsible for self-awareness and interpersonal experiences, and the hippocampus, which manages memories. What is super fascinating about mindfulness is that it just doesn't change the neural structure, it also alters the genetic structure. So people who routinely practice relaxation and mindfulness techniques will actually increase the activity of the genes that calm down their stress reactions. So what does experience-dependent plasticity have to do with the negativity bias? Well, if intense, prolonged, or repeated experiences alter the neural structure, then we can create those experiences, right, with intention so that we can control those changes. We have the power to rewire the brain to focus on the positives or the gains rather than the negatives or the loss. And scientists call this self-directed neuroplasticity. It sounds awfully complicated. It's actually very simple. The key is just to create and focus on more emotionally positive reactions than negative ones. If you focus on self-criticism or that negative talk in your head, the worries, the hurts, and the stress, over time, your neural structure will become wired for reactivity, anxiety, anger, and sadness. On the other hand, if you focus on the positive people and events in your life, those pleasant feelings, or even your own good qualities, then your brain will be wired for optimism and strength and confidence and resilience. This isn't New Age nonsense. Numerous studies and brain scans have shown that intentional emotional experience training actually does sculpt a better brain. So, today, pay attention to what you pay attention to, because you have the power to control what changes your brain and how. Create positive mental states and take pleasure in the fact that you can actually wire them into your brain as neural traits. Use your mind to change your brain to change your mind and wire happiness into your brain. Want to learn more about how the brain works and how you can make it work better for you? Check out my book, Happy Hour with Einstein. And remember, life is always better when you share the good stuff.